Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the NEET Biology lecture series. And today we'll be studying the chapter number 1 of the NCERT book, which is the living world. Okay, so this is a 60-day crash course, and today is the day 1 of the biology lecture series. All right, so these are the topics that we will cover in this lecture. First one is the diversity in the living world. Okay, and these are the subtopics that we'll be studying. All right, first one is the attributes of the living world. Then we'll be studying about the biodiversity, nomenclature, international codes. Okay, and then we'll study about the binomial nomenclature, also known as biological nomenclature. Then we'll study about the rules of nomenclature, classification, taxonomy, all right, systematics. These are the very important topics from this chapter, all right. And then in the end, we'll be studying the various taxonomic categories, okay, and how these categories are stepwise arranged, okay. And then we'll study about the species, genus, okay, and then we will go along till kingdom, okay, and in the end we will be solving about the previous year questions. All right, so let me give you a brief idea about the weightage of the each chapter. All right, so the living world that we are studying today, usually one question comes from this chapter. All right, but still this chapter is very important. We need to study all the topics from this chapter. Okay, again you can see number of questions from each chapter I've mentioned here. All right, again here structure, organization in animals, biomolecules. Okay, all these are important chapters. Okay, cell cycle and cell division, 7 questions have come from this chapter. All right, photosynthesis is very important, 4 questions have come in the NEET exam. All right, likewise plant growth and development, again 3 to 4 questions come from this. Locomotion and movement, breathing and exchange of gases, all are important. Human reproduction. All right, again molecular basis of inheritance, 10 questions have come in 2023 NEET exam. Okay, then again reproductive health, all chapter important. Okay, if the number of questions coming from each chapter is less, still you need to study that chapter, okay, in detail. Okay, again biotechnology, principles and processes, 6 questions have come from this chapter. All right, so now you have a brief idea about the weightage of each chapter and on which chapter you need to focus first. All right, so let's start with the lecture. Okay, so first topic, diversity in the living world. Okay, so now if you see around us, there is numerous species, there are a lot of species, there is a lot of biodiversity, there is different life forms present near you. Okay, so there is a lot of biodiversity. So planet Earth is home to an enormous array of diverse living organisms, all right, such as plants, we have insects, birds and animals. Okay, the different kind of plant, animal, or organism that we see around us represents a species. Okay, so there are numerous species which are adapted to their specific environment. Okay, now let's talk about the term biodiversity. What is biodiversity? Okay, it is simply number and type of organism present on Earth. Okay, and what does biodiversity describe? It describes the variety of life forms on Earth. Okay, so this is what is biodiversity. Now, the number of species that are known and described range between 1.7 to 1.8 million. So you can see there is a lot of biodiversity. The number is huge, 1.7 to 1.8 million. Okay, and out of these 1.25 millions are animals. Okay, this we have identified. Okay, 1.25 million different types of animals have been identified, whereas the number of plant, if you talk about plants, about 0.5 million different number of species of plants are identified. Okay, now I stated earlier there are millions of plants and animals in the world. Okay, and we know that these plants and animals in their own area by their local names. What does this mean? This means that the numerous life form present on the earth, okay, they are known by their local names. Okay, like if I'll give you one example. If you talk about mango, okay, mango in Hindi it's called aam. Okay, if you go to some other country, okay, like in Philippines or something like that, it is called magnot or something, some other name. Okay, so there is lot of confusion. Okay, even within a country, a different organism is known by different names. Okay, so there's in Hindi it is known by some other name, in Tamil it is known by some other name. All right, so this creates a lot of confusion. So now what we need a system of classification. All right, and a single name should be given to a specific organism. All right, so that worldwide, okay, we can understand if we talk about something, okay, worldwide, all the individuals, all the persons should say, okay, we are talking about this organism or this individual. All right, so now we need to name the organism. Okay, and naming of organism is known as nomenclature. Okay, so how can we define nomenclature? Providing distinct and proper name to organism is called nomenclature. Okay, now what is the need of nomenclature? Why we need to name the organism? Okay, so the local names, okay, vary from place to place, even within the country. Okay, this I have already explained you. Okay, different, a single organism is known by different names. Okay, so this creates a lot of confusion. Okay, here I have written that sometimes a single organism is known by several names in the same language also. All right, so that's why we need a system of naming, okay, or system of classification. All right, so there is a need to standardize the naming of the living organism such that a particular organism is known by the same name all over the world. Okay, now next term is identification. So what is identification? So before nomenclature or before naming of the organism, we need to identify the organism. Okay, and what does identification means? It means if the organism is described correctly, all right, and we know to what organism that name is attached to. Okay, and how can we define identification? Okay, so the finding of correct name and the place of an organism in a system of classification is called identification. Okay, so before naming an organism, identification of the individual or the organism is very important. Only then we can name the organism. Okay, now some international codes have been developed by the scientific community. Okay, and they follow these international codes and these rules to name an organism. Okay, so what are international codes? Now in order to facilitate the study, number of scientists have established procedures to assign a scientific name to each known organism. Okay, all right, so what does international code do? International codes, they provide guidelines and regulations to assign the scientific name to a particular organism. Okay, now again for plants we have ICBN, okay, which is full form is International Code for Botanical Nomenclature. Okay, for plants we have ICBN. So this ICBN, they make the guidelines and the principles, okay, and the naming of the plants, okay, is given by ICBN. Similarly for animals, okay, we have ICZN, which is International Code of Zoological Nomenclature. Okay, so this is used for naming of animals. Now let's talk about the biological nomenclature. Okay, let's come back to nomenclature. Biological nomenclature, also known as binomial nomenclature. Okay, binomial. Bi means two. Okay, so this was introduced by Carolus Linnaeus. Okay, so what does this biological or binomial nomenclature means? Okay, so each scientific name, okay, will have two components. Okay, first one is generic epithet, also known as the genus. Okay, and then we have the specific epithet, which represents the species. Okay, so this generic epithet, this represents the genus, whereas specific epithet represents the species. All right, so this is an example that I have given of binomial nomenclature. So here you can see frog. Scientific name of frog is Rana tigrina. Okay, so the first term, this one is the genus. This denotes the genus, and this one is the species. Okay, Rana is the genus, tigrina is the specific epithet or the species. Okay, likewise rose, the scientific name is Rosa indica. Okay, so Rosa is the genus, okay, and indica is the species. Again P, the scientific name is Pisum sativum. Okay, Pisum is the genus and sativum is the species, and Homo sapiens, which are the, you can say, scientific name for man or human. Homo is the genus and sapiens represents the species or the specific epithet. Okay, I hope this binomial nomenclature is clear to you. Okay, now we have, okay, scientific names. We are saying we need to name all the organisms, but what is the need for the scientific names? Again, so the scientific name ensures that each organism has only one name. Okay, like I've said, for frog, scientific name is Rana tigrina. So worldwide, if we go anywhere, if we talk about Rana tigrina, okay, everyone will understand that we are talking about the frog. Okay, so that's why scientific name ensures that each organism has only one name. All right, again, second point, which is description of any organism should enable the people in any part of the world, all right, to arrive at the same name. All right, next is the biological name. Okay, so now let's talk about the rules of the nomenclature. Okay, how the scientific name are written, what are the rules, what are the criteria, what are the principles, okay, of writing or naming of a particular organism. Okay, the first rule, okay, the biological names, or you can also say the scientific names. These are all synonymous, biological name, scientific name. In case of plants, we say botanical name. Okay, if we talk about plants, we can say botanical name. Okay, so these are for plants. If we talk about animals, then zoological name. And both of these are commonly called scientific name. Okay, these are for animals. Okay, so biological names, they are written in Latin. Okay, this you have to remember, and italicized. Okay, so why we are using Latin? Okay, why not other language? Why we are not using English or some other language? Because Latin is a dead language now. It is a dead language and the meaning of the word remains the same. Okay, it is not evolving. This is a dead language. English, if we use English, it is an evolving language and the meaning of the words can change. That's why we are using Latin. Okay, so first point is that they are written in Latin and they are italicized. Next point is that the first word in the biological name, okay, this we have already said, it represents the genus or the generic epithet, while the second component denotes the species or the specific epithet. All right. Example of this can be, again, if we talk about mango, scientific name is Mangifera indica. Okay, so Mangifera will be the genus name, indica will be the species name. Now, another rule is that both the words in the biological name, okay, when handwritten are separately underlined. Okay, So again, let's talk about the scientific name of rose, which is Rosa indica. Okay, so if handwritten, then the name should be underlined separately. Okay, if they are not underlining it, then it should be italicized. All right, and why we italicize? To indicate its Latin origin. All right, so this is clear. Now next rule is that the first word, okay, of any scientific name or biological name, okay, first word is a genus, okay, should start with a capital letter. Okay, while the specific epithet we denote the species start with a small letter. Okay, so this can be explained by the example mango. The scientific name is Mangifera indica. Okay, so Mangifera, which is the genus, you can say it has been italicized. If not underlined, it should be italicized. Okay, indica is also italicized, so no need to underline. This first name, okay, first letter is always capital. So genus, the first letter is always capital, whereas the first letter of species is written in small letters. Okay, now coming to the next rule, which is now name of the author, the person who described the species. Okay, he is known as the author. So name of the author appears after the specific epithet. Okay, again let's take the example of Mangifera indica. This is the genus. All right, this is the genus, this is the species name, and Lin denotes the name of the author, and it is written after the specific epithet. Okay, indica is the specific epithet, so Lin, okay, which is the name of the author. So for Lin is basically Linnaeus. So Linnaeus described this Mangifera indica, mango, for the first time. That's why his name is written here. And one point here to note is that the name is written in abbreviated form. Okay, if you don't, we never write Linnaeus. Okay, we write the name of the author in abbreviated form. Okay, so so name of the author, what is it indicates that the species was first described by Linnaeus. Okay, now this was the end of the rules of the nomenclature. Now let's study about the classification. What is classification? Okay, simply classification you have to remember is ordering of different groups, okay, in various categories based on shared characteristic and evolutionary relationship. So this is classification. So now it is nearly impossible to study all the living organisms. There is a lot of biodiversity, as I have already told you. Okay, so it is impossible to study each and every individual. So now it is necessary to devise some means to study them. Okay, so now this process is known as classification. Okay, now what is classification? Simply you can say it is ordering of organism into groups. This is very simple definition of classification. Okay, now what is classification? It is the process by which anything is grouped into convenient categories, okay, based on some easily observable characters. Okay, so grouping of organism into categories based on some characters. Okay, and these characters are usually similar character or the shared characters. So this is known as classification. Okay, example. Now we easily recognize groups such as plants and animals, dogs and cats and insects. Okay, when we look around us, we can easily see, okay, this is a plant, this is an animal, this is a dog, this is a cat, insect. Okay, okay, so the moment we use any of these terms, okay, what we do, we associate certain characters, okay, with the organism in that group. Okay, if we talk about say a dog, okay, in our mind we develop an image, okay, and we say, okay, this dog has some specific characters. Okay, now suppose we were to say mammals. If someone say mammals, okay, you would of course think of animals with external ears. All the mammals have external ears and body hairs. Okay, so we develop a certain image and we say, okay, this organism has these characters. All right. Likewise, plants, if we talk about plants, like if we talk about wheat, okay, we develop a picture in our mind, okay, that wheat is like this, okay, and we will say, okay, we have developed a picture. And if we talk about rice, we develop some other picture, okay. Now, hence, all these mammals, wheat, rice, plants, and animals that we are talking about, these are convenient categories. All of these are different categories, okay, that we use to study the organism. All right. So, the scientific term for these categories is taxa. Okay. So, these categories are the different taxa. So wheat is a different taxa, okay. Plant, if you talk about plant, plant is also a different taxa, okay. If we talk about, say, plant, this is a taxa in itself. Then within plants, if we talk about wheat, this is also a taxa, but the rank is different, okay. This has a higher rank, this has a lower rank, okay. Then if we talk about rice, this is again a taxa in itself, okay. But here the ranks are different, okay. Plant, this is a higher taxa. We'll talk about the taxa in upcoming slides, okay. We will now plants, okay. This I've already told you. Plants also form a taxa. Wheat is also a taxa, okay. Similarly, animals, mammals, dogs, all are taxa, okay. But you know that dog is a mammal and a mammal is an animal. Again, what does this mean? If we talk about animal, what does they include? They include mammals, okay. And then within mammals we have dog. So all of these are taxa. This is also a taxa. This is also a taxa. Again, dog is also a taxa. All right, but they have different ranks. This is the higher taxa, then lower two animal is mammals, and then the dog is the lowermost taxa here. Now, again, therefore, animals, mammals, and dogs represent taxa at different levels. Means they have different ranks. There is a hierarchy here, okay, which is known as taxonomic hierarchy, okay. So, hence we can conclude that based on the characteristic, all living organisms can be classified into different taxa. Again, point here to remember that based on the characteristic, all right, all living organisms can be classified into different taxa. Now, what is the importance of classification? All right, first important is that it helps in the determination of characteristic feature of living organism. Okay, this is clear. Then classification helps in grouping of organism, all right, in different categories, so that the study of the organism is made easy. Third point is it helps in the identification of the organism, okay. Identification of organism we have already studied. Identification is very important, okay, and identification is done before naming of the organism, okay. Now, next importance of classification is it helps to understand the biodiversity. This I've already told you. We cannot study each and every individual, so we need to group them into different categories so that we can study biodiversity. Now, next point is that the classification helps in the studying the interrelationship among different organisms, okay. Now, the different taxa are there, okay. Now, if we group them into different taxa, we can find out the relationship among the different organisms, whether they are related or not, whether they are evolutionary related or not, all right. Now, the last point is that classification helps in the prediction of the line of evolution, all right. What does this mean? Prediction of line of evolution means it helps to determine the phylogeny, okay, or the evolutionary relationship, okay. Now let's talk about the term taxonomy. Okay, this is very important, taxonomy. So term taxonomy was given by the French botanist D. Candolle. Okay, he coined this term. And what is taxonomy? Simply you can say, how can you define taxonomy in simple words? It is the science of naming and classifying organism. This is a very simple definition of taxonomy. Science of naming and classifying organism means it includes the nomenclature. Naming is nomenclature, and it also includes classification of organism. Now, what are the objectives of taxonomy? Okay, first objective is that studying of all living species means studying of the biodiversity. Studying of the biodiversity means different life forms present on the earth. Okay, which can be microbes, it can be plants, it can be animals. Okay, so this is the first objective. Second objective is the compilation of the collected information. So the information is huge. Okay, so biodiversity, you have seen, it is huge. The organisms are present in millions. Okay, so now we have to compile the data. So objective of taxonomy is to compile this huge data. All right. So now next objective is the demonstration of the biodiversity and its relation to our understanding of evolution. What does this mean? Demonstration of biodiversity. How can we demonstrate biodiversity? All right. So how can we demonstrate it? We have to provide observable evidence, okay, and documentation of the wide variety of life forms. All right. So again, I will repeat, okay, how can we demonstrate the biodiversity? By providing evidence in the form of documents, okay, of the biodiversity. This is how we can demonstrate the biodiversity. All right. And next is the relation of the biodiversity with the evolution. How biodiversity explains evolution. Okay, this is the second point. Now let's talk about this in detail. How biodiversity helps to understand the process of evolution. Now, if you examine the vast array of life forms present on the earth, okay, you can see there are numerous species present around you, okay, which are in millions, and these species are adapted to their specific environment. All right, so you can see, okay, there is one species which is adapted to cold conditions. Okay, one species is adapted to dry conditions. Okay, so according to the habitat, according to the environment, according to the conditions, they have evolved. All right, they have evolved over time. So this is how biodiversity helps us to understand the process of evolution. So evolution is going on. Okay, it takes millions of years, evolution. So different species, they are being adapted to their specific environment through evolution. Okay, evolution is taking place, or simply you can say numerous species which are present. Okay, these are because of the evolution. All right, now let's talk about the basis of the modern taxonomy. Okay, what is modern taxonomy? So modern taxonomy is based on these features. First is the external and internal structure. External morphological features, you can say. Internal structure is anatomy. Okay, anatomy includes the internal structure. Now, along with the structure of the cells, now we include the structure of the cells also. We are studying about the cytology. Okay, next is the developmental process, developmental biology, and ecological information of organism are essential, and all these forms the basis of modern taxonomy. So modern taxonomy includes all these morphological features, anatomical features. All right, structure of the cell, cytology, it is including developmental biology, it is including ecology also. Okay, means ecology, what does mean? Interrelation of the organism with the environment and among themselves. This is known as ecology. So modern taxonomic studies are based on all these features. All right, so hence we can say that characterization, identification, nomenclature, and classification are the processes that are basic to the taxonomy. So taxonomy, if you talk about taxonomy, you can say it includes characterization, identification, nomenclature, and classification. This is a taxonomy includes, or you can say modern taxonomy includes all these features. Now, next term is systematics. Okay. So systematic term was coined by a Swedish botanist Carolus Linnaeus in 1735. Alright. Now word systematics is derived from the Latin word systema. Okay. And what does this word means? This means systematic arrangement of organism. Alright. So what is systematic? How can you define systematics in very simple language? Systematic arrangement of organism. This is known as systematic. Now, there was an American biologist, George Gaylord Simpson. He defined systematics. How? He said that it is a study of kind and diversity of life on Earth. And what is kind and diversity of life on Earth? It is the biodiversity. Okay, this is the definition of biodiversity, kind and diversity of life form on Earth. Okay, so Simpson defined it as a study of biodiversity, you can say, simply. Okay, then what happened later? The scope of systematics was enlarged, okay, to include identification, nomenclature, classification, and evolution relationship. Okay, so these are all the part of taxonomy also. Identification, nomenclature, classification. You can include characterization also in this. Okay, and this is the additional point. Okay, so apart from all these points, systematic also include the evolutionary relationship between the organism. Okay, so now what is the difference between taxonomy and systematics? Okay, or we can say how is systematics different from taxonomy? Okay, so taxonomy, as I've already told you, include characterization, identification, naming, which is the nomenclature, and classification. And apart from this, we talk about systematic. Apart from all these features, it also includes, or it also takes into account, evolutionary relationship between the organism. So you can say systematic is simply taxonomy. Okay, taxonomy plus the phylogeny. What is phylogeny? Phylogeny is evolutionary relationship. Alright, so this is systematics. Alright, so this was the end of systematics. Now we'll study the next topic, which is taxonomic categories. Alright, so this is also a very important topic. A lot of questions can come from this topic itself. Alright, now let me give you a brief introduction first. Okay, now classification. Okay, we were talking about classification, which is the ordering of organism into groups based on some shared characteristic. Alright, so classification is not a single step process. Okay, but involves hierarchy. Alright, in which each step represents a rank of category. I've already given you some idea about this. Okay, so when we were talking about the examples of mammals, animals, and dog. Okay, so each, okay, so there you can see hierarchy you can see, or I was talking about ranks also there. Okay, so all were taxa, but they were given different ranks. All right, so classification is not a single step, but it involves hierarchy. All right, now since the category, or you can say group, any group, any taxa, you can say taxa also here. Okay, since the category, group, okay, is a part of overall taxonomic arrangement, means the taxonomic hierarchy, it is called as taxonomic category, and all the categories together constitute the taxonomic hierarchy. All right, all the categories. Suppose if we again talk about animals. Okay, within animals we have mammals, and then within mammals we were talking about dogs. All right, so each one, okay, Each one is a taxa also, each one is a category also. You can call this as category, you can call this as a group also, or a taxa also. All right, but the ranking is different. There is a hierarchy. Okay, this is the lowermost taxon, this is the highest taxon here. Okay, so there is a hierarchy here, and this each is known as taxonomic category. All right, now taxonomic categories. How can we define taxonomic categories? So taxonomic categories are group of organisms, okay, that are systematically arranged. All right, means there is a hierarchy. They are systematically classified and arranged, okay, into different hierarchical levels based on what? Based on shared characteristic and evolutionary relationship. All right, so this is the simple definition of taxonomic categories. Okay, again I'll repeat it. So taxonomic categories is the grouping of organism systematically, okay, into different groups, okay, and there is a hierarchy, there is a hierarchical system here. Okay, I will give an example, then it will be more clear. And this grouping is based on the shared characteristic and evolutionary relationship. All right, so this classification, this grouping of organism is based on what? Shared characteristic, or you can say similar characteristic, and phylogeny, which is the evolutionary relationship. Okay, now because of this, each category, okay, each taxonomic category can be referred to as a unit of classification, okay, and this each category represents a rank and is commonly termed as a taxon. All right, so each category, each taxonomic category represents a rank, okay, different ranks, okay, and this category is also known as, or you can commonly call these categories as taxon also. This I have already told you. You can call it as taxon, group as well. All right, so this is an example. I will give you an example. So let's take the example of insects. All right, so insect, I've given two examples. I've given an example of ant and a beetle. All right, so all these insects contain 3 pair of legs. Okay, first is this one, first pair of leg. Okay, this is the second pair of leg, and this is the third pair of legs. Similarly here also, this is the first pair, second pair, and the third pair of legs. Now if you talk about insects, insect represents a group of organisms sharing common features. Okay, what is the common feature here? 3 pair of jointed legs. Okay, so according to this common feature, okay, this is a common feature here, 3 pair of jointed legs. So based on this, we can group them into insects. Okay, whenever we see this feature, 3 pair of jointed leg, we can say, or we can group them into insects. All right, so what does this mean? This means insects are recognizable concrete objects which can be classified, all right, which can be classified based on this character, 3 pair of jointed legs, and thus they are given a rank. So they are given a rank means they are given a separate category or a group. All right, now let's talk about a taxon. Okay, so taxon is singular, plural of taxon is taxa. All right, so what is a taxa? Now based on characteristic, all living organism can be classified into different taxa. Okay, we have already seen that based on characteristic means based on similar characters and evolutionary relationship, all the organism can be classified into different organism, classified into different taxa. All right, now what is the definition of a taxon? How can we define a taxon? So a taxon refers to a group or category into which organisms are classified based on shared characteristic and evolutionary relationship. Okay, this is very simple. Okay, grouping. Okay, so taxon is a group or a category, okay, into which different organisms are classified based on the characteristic. Now taxa, what does taxa indicate? Taxa indicate categories at various hierarchical levels. Okay, example, if we take an example of plant also is called as a taxa, and wheat is also a taxa. Okay, so plant is a higher taxa. Okay, within plant, if we talk about wheat, okay, this is the lower taxa, lower two plants. Okay, so you can see there is a hierarchy here. There is a hierarchical system. This is known as taxonomic hierarchy. Okay, this is a taxa. Okay, or a category or a group. This is also a taxa or a category or a group, but the ranking is different. All right, now each rank or a taxon in fact represents a unit of classification. Lot of question comes from this sentence. Okay, whether a taxon, what does taxon represent? So you can say taxon represents a unit of classification. Okay, now these taxonomic groups or categories are distinct biological entities. This you have to remember. All these taxonomic groups or categories or taxa are distinct biological categories and not merely morphological aggregates. Means they are not only similar morphologically, they are distinct biological entities. Means they are different at genetic level also. Okay, their genetics is different, even the behavior is different. All right, so all the taxonomic group or the categories are different genetically, behaviorally, okay, and not merely they are different in characters. All right, now taxonomical studies of all the known organism has led to the development of common categories. Okay, so now common categories has been developed. Okay, now what are these common categories? These common taxonomic categories are kingdom, which is the highermost taxon. Okay, then we have lower to kingdom, we have phylum. All right, phylum we use in case of animals. If we are talking about animals, we will say like phylum chordata. All right, and if we talk about plants, we don't use this term phylum, we use the term division. All right, now then we have the next taxonomic categories, which is the class. Then we have the order, genus, family, genus, and species is the lowermost taxon. Okay, it is the lowermost category you can say, or taxon or taxa. All right, so these are broad categories. Okay, kingdom, phylum, order, family, genus, species, these are broad taxonomic categories. All right, now all organisms including those in plants and animal kingdom have species as their lowermost category. This I've already told you, species is the lowermost category or the taxon, and kingdom is the highest. All right, category taxon. Now the question you may ask is, now there is a question, okay, how to place an organism into various categories. All right, how we can place the organism into different categories? First one is based on similar characteristic. And what is required to place an organism in various categories? We need to know the characteristic first. Okay, we need to identify that organism. Okay, we need to know the characteristic. What are the character of that organism? What are the characteristic? Okay, so the basic requirement is the knowledge of the characters of the individual or group or organism, and then only we can classify them or name them or whatever. First basic requirement is the knowledge of the characters of the individual or group of organism. Okay, now this helps in identifying similarities and dissimilarities among the individuals of the same kind of organism as well as of the other kind of organism. If we know the characteristic feature of that organism, so this will help in identifying similarities and dissimilarities among individuals of the same kind as well as other kind of organism. Okay, now all organisms including those in plants and animal kingdom have species as the lowest category. This we already know. Now this is an example of the taxonomic hierarchy, you can say. Okay, So this is the kingdom. If we talk about kingdom, highest, this is the highest most taxon. Okay, lower to kingdom we have phylum. So these are all broad taxonomic categories. Then lower to phylum we have class, then we have order, then we have family, genus, and species. Okay, now if we talk about species, which is the lowermost taxon, so at species level the similarities are very much, there is very high similarity if we talk about species. Okay, very high similarity among the individuals. Okay, very high similarity between the organisms, you can say, or you can say organisms share lot of similar characteristic. Alright, that's why species is, this taxon is very specific and it contains closely related organism. Okay, why it contains closely related organism? Because the similarity is very high. Okay, number of similar character is very high. Okay, and as we move upwards, towards the kingdom. Okay, now this is a very broad category. So kingdom, if you talk about kingdom, this is a very broad category. It includes everything. Okay, like if we talk about kingdom animalia, it includes animals of different kinds. It includes fish also, it includes dogs also, cats also, humans also, apes also, reptiles also, everything. So it is a very broad category, so it becomes very general. Okay, and it contains many organisms, this I have already told you, and the number of similar character decreases. Okay, you have to remember this as we go higher up the taxonomic hierarchy. So this is a taxonomic hierarchy. This figure represents taxonomic hierarchy, and as we move upwards, the number of shared characteristic, or you can say number of similar characteristic, okay, decreases. This you have to remember. The number of shared characters decreases as we move up the taxonomic hierarchy. Another thing to remember is that kingdom, this kingdom, if we talk about this kingdom or phylum, these are very general and broad categories, whereas as we move downwards towards species, alright, it becomes very specific. So now if we talk about genus and species, which should be more specific, species should be more specific than genus. And then if we talk about family and genus, then genus is more specific than family. Okay, likewise if you talk about phylum and class organism present in this class are more closely related, okay, than if we talk about phylum. All right, now one again point to remember here is that how can you remember this kingdom, phylum, class, order, family? A lot of students, they forget in the exam. So simple way to remember this taxonomic hierarchy is, you can remember this: King Philip can only find green socks. All right, K for kingdom, then we have P for phylum, class, order, family, and then genus, and then species. So you can remember this: King Philip can only find green socks. So this is how you can remember the taxonomic hierarchy. All right, now let's take an example of the classification of human or man. All right, so kingdom, which is a very broad category, okay, kingdom animalia, if we talk about, which includes the animals. All right, then lower to kingdom we have phylum. Okay, so kingdom animalia, we are talking about the phylum chordates or chordata. Then within lower to phylum we have class, which include class mammalia. Okay, then order primata, family hominids, genus, okay, will be homo obviously, and species is sapiens. All right, so this is the example of the classification system of human or man. All right, now let's talk about the next term, taxonomic hierarchy. What is taxonomic hierarchy. So taxonomic hierarchy is a stepwise arrangement. This you have to remember. It is a stepwise arrangement of living organism into groups where each level or rank represents a specific degree of relatedness and shared characteristic. Alright, this we have already discussed. As we go move higher from species to the kingdom, the number of common characteristics goes on decreasing. Okay, lower the taxa, more are the characteristics that members within the taxon share. This also we have discussed. Now let's talk about the broad taxonomic category. Let's start with the species now. The species we've already discussed is the lowest category. Alright, and how can we define species? Taxonomic study consider a group of individual organisms with fundamental similarities as a species. Okay, now one should be able to distinguish one species from the other closely related species based on distinct morphological differences. Okay, let us consider the example of Mangifera indica and Solanum tuberosum and Panthera leo. So all these three names, indica, tuberosum and leo, represents the specific epithet, while the first word Mangifera, Solanum and Panthera are the genera or the genus and represent the another higher category or the higher level of taxon or category. So genus is the higher level of taxon than species. Okay, now each genus may have one or more than one specific epithet. This you have to remember. Each genus can have one or more than one specific epithet representing different organism. Okay, so genus can be same. Okay, like if we talk about potato, Solanum tuberosum. Okay, tuberosum is the species. Now if we talk about tomato, which is Solanum lycopersicum, so species is different. If the species become different, then it represents different organism. All right, let's discuss another example, Panthera. Let's take example of Panthera. So Panthera has another specific epithet called tigris. So if we talk about Panthera leo, which is lion, if we talk about Panthera tigris, which is tiger. All right, likewise Solanum includes species like Solanum nigrum and Solanum melongena. Solanum nigrum is potato, Solanum melongena is brinjal. Now human being belongs to the species sapiens, alright, grouped into the genus Homo. Alright, so scientific name of human is Homo sapiens. Now let's talk about the genus. So genus comprise group of related species. This you have to remember, which have more characters common in comparison to species of other genera. Now genera or genus are aggregate of closely related species. Okay, example can be potato and brinjal are two different species, alright, but both belong to the genus Solanum. Okay, they both have the genus Solanum. Potato is Solanum nigrum, brinjal is Solanum melongena. Both have same genus, but the species is different. Okay, similarly if you talk about lion, lion is Panthera leo. Okay, leopard is Panthera pardus, tiger is Panthera tigris. Here the species is different, but the genus is same. Okay, now but what happens if we talk about Panthera and we talk about cat? Okay, genus is Felis. Both the genus are different. Okay, so this genus Panthera differs from another genus Felis, which includes cats. Okay, now next category is family. Okay, so family is what? Has a group of related genus or genera. Okay, with still less number of similarities as compared to genus and species. Now family are characterized on the basis of what? On the basis of vegetative and reproductive feature of the plant. A question I have seen have come in the NEET exam from this. Families are characterized based on the vegetative and reproductive features. Alright. Now among plants, for example, three different genera. Now, okay, Solanum, Petunia and Datura, these are placed in the family Solanaceae. You can see the genus are different, but all of these are placed in the family Solanaceae based on the similar characteristic. Okay, now among animals, if we talk about genus Panthera, comprising lion, tiger, leopard, is put along with genus Felis, which represents cats in the family Felidae. Okay, so family Felidae includes cats as well as lions. Similarly, if you observe the feature of a cat and a dog, okay, you will find some similarities and some differences as well. All right, now they are separated into different families. For cats, it's Felidae. For dogs, it is Canidae. Okay, so this is for dogs, this is for cats. Okay, now these don't share much characteristic. That's why they are separated into two different families. Now next, let's talk about the order. What is order? Generally, order and other higher taxonomic categories are identified based on the aggregates of characters. Okay, this you have to remember. Now, order being a higher category is the assemblage of families. Okay, this is a taxonomic category higher to families. That's why, how can we define order? It is the assemblage of families. All right. Now, the similar characters are less in number as compared to different genera included in the family. This is also good as we go higher up the taxonomic hierarchy, the number of similar characters decreases. Okay, now plant example. Okay, now plant families like Convolvulaceae, Solanaceae are included in the order Polymoniales, mainly based on the floral characters. This also you have to remember. And the animal order Carnivora includes families like Felidae and Canidae. Now, next category is class. So this category includes related orders. Example can be order Primata comprising monkey, gorilla and gibbon is placed in the class Mammalia, okay, along with the order Carnivora. So the order Primata and the order Carnivora are placed in the class Mammalia. Okay, now classes comprising animals like fishes, amphibians, reptiles and birds along with the mammals constitute the next category called the phylum. Okay, example can be phylum Chordata. So phylum Chordata, what does it include? It includes all these organisms. It includes reptile, birds, mammals, all right, fishes, based on what? Based on the presence of the notochord and dorsal hollow neural system. Okay, now in case of plant, classes with a few similar characters are assigned to a higher category called division. I've already told you, if we talk about plants, we will talk about division, not phylum. Phylum is only for animals, division is for plants. Now let's talk about phylum. Okay, classes comprising animals like fishes, amphibians, reptiles and birds along with mammals constitute this we have already studied. Okay, this also we have studied. Okay, now let's talk about the kingdom, which is the highest most taxon. So all animals belonging to various phyla are assigned to the highest category called the kingdom Animalia, okay, or kingdom Plantae, which will include the plants. Okay, the kingdom Plantae on the other hand is distinct and comprises all plants from the various division. Henceforth, we will refer these two groups as animal and plant kingdom. Alright, so this is the highest most taxon, plant kingdom and the animal kingdom, which are very broad. Okay, so these are very broad categories. Alright, but however, taxonomists have also been developing subcategories. Okay, they want to develop subcategories also because kingdom is a very broad category, so they are developing subcategories within this kingdom also. Okay, so this we have already studied. As we go higher from species to kingdom, the number of common characters goes on decreasing. Lower the taxa, more are the characteristics, alright, that the members share within the taxon. Alright. Now, higher the category, greater is the difficulty of determining the relationship to other taxa. This you have to remember, this is very important. Higher the category means if we talk about kingdom, now greater is the difficulty of determining the relationship to other taxa at the same level. Okay, so if we talk about kingdom Animalia or kingdom Plantae, whatever, it includes fish also, it includes dogs also, it includes man also. Okay, now it becomes very difficult because it is a very broad category. Now the evolutionary relationship Okay, if we want to determine the evolutionary relationship between fish, dog, and man, it is very difficult here. Okay, so higher the category, okay, greater is the difficulty to determine the relationship. Now it is very difficult to determine the relationship between these three. All right, because the number of similar characters are also different, and they are very divergent also. They are very evolutionary divergent also. All right, this I've already explained. Okay, the reason for that, this is because higher taxonomic rank encompasses a broader range of organisms, and the characteristic used for classification become more general and less specific. Okay, now this is a table showing the organism with their taxonomic categories. This is from the NCERT book. Okay, you can study from there. I've mentioned it here. Man is known as Homo sapiens, is belong to this genus. Family is Hominidae, order is Primata. Similarly, housefly, mango, and wheat. You should remember all of these. Okay, questions can come from this table. Okay, like man belongs to which order or mango belongs to which family. This you have to remember. These are the important one. Now let's come to the previous year questions. All right, so I've included 4 questions here. Okay, so I'll give you a brief idea about what type of questions come here. Okay, so first question is, which of the following belongs to the family Mucidae? All right, so options are housefly, firefly, grasshopper, and cockroach. Okay, so the answer to this question is housefly. Okay, so housefly belong to the family Mucidae. This type of question comes in the exam. All right, so they will give you some options and they will ask you, so this organism belongs to this family or whatever family. They will ask you of order or genus or whatever. They can ask you this type of questions. Now, next type of question is the common characteristic between potato and tomato will be maximum at the level of their options are order, family, genus, and division. So potato and tomato, they belong to same genus. They belong to same genus. Potato, what is potato? Potato is Solanum tuberosum. All right. Tomato is Solanum lycopersicum. Okay, now they belong to the same genus. Okay, but the species is different. So you have to remember this and then you have to answer. So what should be the answer? Now the common characteristic will be maximum at the level of, what should be the answer? Should be at the genus level. Okay. Now next question. Now true species, they're talking about species. How can true species be defined? Okay. So options are interbreeding. Are they interbreeding? Do they share the same niche? Okay. They feed on the same food, or they are reproductively isolated. Okay, so for this question you need to understand the definition of species. What is true species? So what should be the option here? Answer here. Interbreeding? No. Okay. Do they share same niche? If they share same niche, then we can't call them as a true species. Okay. Feeding on the same food again. So what should be the answer? Reproductively isolated. One species is reproductively isolated from other species. All right. Now the last question. Okay. Let's talk about the binomial nomenclature. So questions come from binomial nomenclature, also known as the biological nomenclature. So this we have already discussed. Okay. What does binomial nomenclature means? Okay. So we were talking about the 2 components here. Each name has, or each scientific name has 2 component. Okay, one was the generic epithet, one is the specific epithet. Okay, so the options are one name given by 2 scientists. Second option is one scientist name consisting of generic and specific epithet. Third option is 2 names, one Latinized, other of person. Last option is 2 name of the same plant. So what should be the answer here? One scientific name consists of a generic and the specific epithet. Okay, binomial nomenclature, I've already told you, consists of that, says that a scientific name or a biological name consists of two components. One is the generic epithet, which represents the genus. Another one is the specific epithet, which represents the species. So this should be the answer for this question. All right. So this was the end of this lecture. Hope you enjoyed it and you got a lot of information. If you have any question, you can ask. All right. Thank you very much for listening.